Hi everyone, I'm meteorologist Valerie Mills. Thanks for logging on to My Fox Hurricane, where we are still tracking Hurricane Rafael in the Gulf of Mexico. Very eerie to be seeing a hurricane this close to home, but this is continuing to move off to the west. And in fact, we actually have no tropical watches or advisories in place for this system. This briefly became a major hurricane out in parts of the central Gulf. Now we're talking Category 2 strength, 110-mile-per-hour winds. So still a pretty strong hurricane, given that we're kind of inching toward the middle of November, but an interesting track with this storm to be heading due east to west in the Gulf of Mexico. So overall, this one didn't bring us too many impacts here across the state, and it is going to continue to weaken through the day today and right on through the weekend. So the track map from here gets a little bit funky, and so we're expecting this to steadily weaken from here. It will be downgraded to a tropical storm likely by Saturday morning. So that could happen later in the day on Friday, but definitely through the weekend, we expect this to continue on its weakening trend. The track map gets a little bit funky here as the steerings that's guiding the storm is going to collapse over the weekend. And so what we see is it heads west, potentially takes a little loop, and then starts to dive south come Monday into Tuesday. And look, by Monday morning, winds down to 40 miles per hour. So we go from 80-mile-per-hour winds on Saturday morning down to 40, and then expecting this to become the remnants of Rafael by early or the middle of next week. And so what's interesting about this storm is we were looking at a lot of potential landfalls to occur along the Gulf of Mexico, but we did talk about the potential that this storm would just kind of fizzle out in the Gulf as it started to encounter all of the drier air and the stronger wind shear. And so that's actually looking like the most likely thing that is going to happen here. And so through the weekend, we see it heading west. And then once it starts to lose its steering, that's where we see it just kind of meander around parts of the Gulf. And in the meantime, some stronger high surf and some rip currents will be possible. But as far as the outer bands with the storm, not many impacts to land as it's a very small storm. And so the wind field doesn't really expand out too much. And then we see it by Tuesday, expecting this to really weaken and kind of be down to nothing then by the start of the upcoming week. And so we see that here on our Fox model here, a good looking storm right now, but it heads due west. And notice all of the wind field with the system maybe brings some breezy conditions to the coast of Louisiana, Texas. But as far as that, impacts are going to be pretty minimal for us here around the Gulf Coast. We do have that high rip current along Florida's west coast on Friday, and we'll likely see that into the start of the weekend, but then the waves with this system will continue to kind of relax through the weekend. And so some high rip current, some high surf is going to be possible along the Gulf Coast. And then we will see that all kind of relax down with some calmer waves offshore expected at the end of the weekend and especially the start of next week. Otherwise, we have just another area that we're tracking right now, kind of just outside of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola areas. This threat, only about 20% chance for this to develop, but it's something that we'll be keeping a close eye on. Maybe at the end of this weekend, we see some sort of area of low pressure, which at this point doesn't look too likely that it is going to develop, but it may start to kind of drift over parts of the U.S. Virgin Islands, the southern Bahamas, and bring some areas of enhanced rain. That is possible for parts of Florida as well, but at this point doesn't look too likely. And so we'll just continue to watch this and talk about some higher chances for rain for some of these islands over the next few days. Otherwise, though, we're counting down to the end of this hurricane season on November 30th. The next name in line would be Sarah. Then we're off to Tony and Valerie. We'll continue to watch those areas with more updates to come right here on My Fox Hurricane.